Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Blake and Aaron. How are you guys doing?
We are great.
How are you?
What do you have for us this morning?
Good. So we have several persons being arrested. How are you guys doing? By the police for gambling. Go figure. I know.
Okay.
Yes, believe it or not, it's possible. So 3 women, no less, have been arrested for selling lottery tickets, and the police continue to warn people that it is an offense to sell numbers or lottery tickets or gamble here in the Cayman Islands. Now, interestingly enough, we discovered when we were talking about it on the Cold Hard Truth this week, is that the fines are just ridiculously low. Like it's like $10. If you get caught.
So explain to me, how the numbers works. How does it?
I've got a number in my head, Blake.
So I'll tell you what I understand of it. I've never played numbers, so this is what I understand happens. There are countries that numbers are played in, such as Jamaica, Honduras, and maybe other surrounding countries. And so we piggyback off of the playing of those numbers in those countries. So, for example, I mean, I don't even know if these are like official lottos in those countries or underground lotteries or how.
What's the quick premise? You
guess on a number. So it's like, okay, I'm
going to buy number 22.
Is it 1 through 100, 1 through a million?
I think it depends on which one it is, so that they have different ranges depending on which.
And then somebody draws the number, and if you get it, you win money.
Yeah. And you can buy different pieces on it as well.
Well, how do you know?
Because the person who's selling it, like everybody, I guess, who's in it, knows what number is going to play, like what number eventually plays. So you'll hear raffle.
It's a raffle.
Yeah, there's like a joke, like people in church are like messaging each other right in the middle of the sermon, like, "Oh, what number played this morning?"
How is that different than
the raffle?
Than some sort of raffle that do on island?
Well, I think the difference, and we're still looking at where legislatively the difference falls, is that I've been told there is legislation that has legitimized it for certain purposes. So if it's like an NPO who does it as a one-off, as a fundraiser or an event, like a charity or something, that has a legal excuse that wouldn't make it gambling.
I mean, it doesn't sound that bad playing numbers. Wouldn't you rather make a number thing here in our own country so the money's not going off island?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of arguments in favor of it, but no, the money stays here. I mean, I don't know how they connect to the numbers overseas, but they've got bankers in the Cayman Islands who make millions of dollars, I'm told, per annum on the illegal numbers game.
And the government could get a little slice of that if
there's 1 or 2 major players that everybody seems to know about, and nothing's ever done. I think the difference with a government ran lotto scheme is there's a lot of controls that have to be in place. So there's a lot of expense that people don't necessarily think about that comes with it.
Well, that's why in the States, when you win $1 million, you get like half of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's all these things, but I think as a whole, supposedly the country, the Christian community in the Cayman Islands, who's always speaking out against, the LGBTQ community.
You just told us they're texting each other in church. So, yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
Sounds like pick and choosing out of the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in other news, Triple C School went into lockdown yesterday morning after an individual who they say did not belong at the institution was seen on campus. They didn't exactly say what happened after that, except that they saw this individual at about 8:25 a.m. The school went into lockdown, and the lockdown ended at 8:57. And as a result of this, campus security, custodial, and senior staff are now, going to be putting some lockdown and safety protocols in place, which you would have thought were already there, but there you go.
I mean, was this this guy dressed in a trench coat or like what was?
They didn't exactly say.
Was he there to see his
just visiting? I want to see
my son or my daughter, or was it a parent?
It's difficult to say.
All right.
Just don't know.
Well,
BVI.
find out.
Did anyone ask him? Did anyone go up to him and say, "Hey, man, what you doing here?" All right, what's your business here?
Lockdown.
BVI Premier, who is in U.S. custody, Andrew Fahy. Remember, he was arrested last week in this big sting operation. He is trying to claim that he has some sort of immunity from prosecution. So his attorneys, they don't sound like they're the brightest. But anyway, he was claiming at an appearance, they'd filed some documents yesterday, that he had immunity from prosecution because he's an elected constitutional head of the government.
Executive privilege? I don't think so.
Yeah, he wasn't there on a...
You get to break the law because you're
Hey, I'm just playing numbers. What's the problem?
You get to break the law because you're the leader of the British Virgin Islands. Needless to say, the U.S. Swiftly turned that down. I mean, I'm sure they laughed and thought that was a big joke.
What was it? Presidential immunity or something?
Finally, in Shanghai, did you guys hear this really bizarre story about how this person was taken to the morgue, this elderly COVID patient?
No.
They were taken to the morgue and they weren't even dead.
No, they
had them in the bag.
Yeah, they
Are you talking about here?
Shanghai. No, they loaded the guy up. He's like, "No, I'm not dead." It was like
had him in the bag
out of Monty Python. Bring out your dead. I'm not dead yet. Oh, you will be in a minute. It's like, no.
What?
Or was that?
It is absolutely crazy. Yes, an elderly man was taken to the morgue in a body bag while he was still alive. And so now this has happened. You know, Shanghai is in its 6th week of a crazy lockdown because, you know, they still believe in the zero COVID policy. And, you know, they're making so many crazy mistakes like this that this just sort of highlighted it even more. So now the government is claiming that they're going to make some changes.
You got to go on Bubble.
All right, guys.
In 30 seconds. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'll tell you more about that story later today, Blake. Wild.
Our segment with CMR brought to you.
All right, folks. The stuff that you hear that makes you go, huh? Not even, that makes you go, huh? All right, let me quickly get on the radio. We got to do this fast. Pronto. Good morning, everyone. Let me just click on all my little buttons and get in there. Come on, computer.
Peppermint, sorrel, ginger, beaver grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the cold, hard truth. Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.
Okay, am I the only one who's hearing that super bizarre noise this morning? Radio, yeah, Sarah. Okay, give me 1 second. I don't think it's on my end. I need technical support this morning. Let's try hanging out. Whoa, what was that? That was like alternative universe stuff. Okay, we're gonna try to log back in. All right. Nope. It's still there. All right, let me just log out before I drive people crazy this morning. Yeah, maybe they need to restart it in that end. So folks, technology being what it is, sometimes these things are bound to happen. So most days it works perfectly fine. And then you've got the odd occasion when it's going to do something super weird like that. So I don't even know what that's about. It's super bizarre. All right, let me see here what's shaking. Got a lot of news to cover this morning. So let's just give them a minute to get that sorted, and we shall retry the radio connection. Yeah, okay. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I try to not mess with any of my settings on my end. So when something works, they say if it's not broken, don't mess with it. So I keep all of my board settings the same. I'm very, very cognizant of not touching anything. And then, yeah, it's weird. Don't know what's going on. Richard says, DJ Sandy. I know it did kind of have that DJ effect, right? Where you're scratching a record or something honey child, you just go with the flow. Good morning. Trying to clean my glasses. I took out a brand new cloth this morning. Anybody else wear glasses around here? I started wearing glasses again recently. I had for many, many years, I actually had LASIK surgery when I was, I think I was I just started law school, I believe, or maybe the second year of law school or so. So I've never heard it before. Huh. Okay. So, yeah. So the bizarre thing is, let me just double check. Is Yep. So, okay. We'll give them a few minutes here. He says to try now. All right, let's try it and see. Let's see what's going on. Let's try it. All right. Good morning, everyone, on Bobo 89.1 FM. Sounds good to me. I don't know what Senior Chuck did, but I think Chuck fixed it. Shall we replay the intro? Why not?
Peppermint, sorrel, ginger, beaver grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the cold, hard truth. Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.
Good morning, folks. So good to see all of you. Happy Wednesday, Hump Day Wednesday. I was just saying to our online viewers, my apologies, first of all, for the technical difficulties. 99% of the time, everything's probably perfect, and there's just that one-off when things happen. But thank God for modern technology, because we can fix things so incredibly quickly. So we're going to chit chat, just have a little bit of fun conversation this morning before we have our guests come on. We have guests joining us from BVI to try to unravel that hot mess of a situation that's happening over there. Super interesting. And we'll get into some of the nitty gritty details with some of their citizens. They've been protesting, and we'll find out what they're protesting about and what they have to say about what has happened with their premier, Mr. Andrew Fahy, being arrested. Not just arrested, but charged. So in the meantime, folks, we can have a little discussion about fun stuff. So I was just here cleaning my glasses. I'd taken out a brand new cleaning cloth, and it was reminding me of, for a period of many, many years, I did not wear glasses. So I started wearing glasses in high school, and I had such horrible vision at the time. Like, I remember telling my aunt, I would look at the board and I would say, I'm not really seeing things as clearly as I should be. Like, I kind of feel like something's a bit off. And she's like, no, your sight is perfect. I'm like, how can you tell somebody that their sight is perfect? You're not seeing what I'm seeing. But she seemed to have been of the opinion that glasses were some sort of fashion statement back in the day. And I was like, what? Child, please. Nothing fashionable about wearing glasses. I mean, I think now they might be a fashion accessory. I don't know. But when I finally got to the ophthalmologist and, I got my glasses ordered and I put them on, I was so shocked at how much I had been missing. Like, literally, we went to one of those lens crafters or something in the mall, and I'll never forget this. It was actually Tampa Bay Mall, which is no longer even around. And I put them on and I walked out in the mall and I was like, that song, I Can See Clearly Now? I was just like, oh my God, when did all this happen in the mall? I was seeing signs. I was seeing like everything. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So, yeah, pretty cool. And then I had LASIK surgery many, many years ago when I was in law school here in the Cayman Islands. And it was I'm actually allergic to this. You're going to learn a little bit something about me this morning, but I'm actually allergic to certain metals. So I can't wear costume jewelry. So I can't wear anything that has like the alloy metals in it, which includes metal glass frames. So that's why if you see me, you'll always see me with plastic frames, because the metal frames actually rub against my skin. And on the sides, they actually erode my skin. And right here, like it's horrible. So for many, many years, metal frames were like, it was really hard back then to find plastic frames. And it was such a difficult situation. Like if I tried to exercise or play sports, that would agitate it more because of the sweat. And it was just crazy. So I remember saving up my money, and I got LASIK surgery, and it was the best thing that at that time I'd ever spent money on. I felt like it was such a miraculous invention. Uh-oh. It just came back for a brief second there. What's going on there? Okay, so yeah. So anyway, for about 15 years or so, I was great, had perfect vision. And then after I had my daughter, I noticed that my vision started to deteriorate. And I went in here to one of the eye doctors, and they said, oh, this is part of pregnancy, of having a baby. All sorts of things go haywire. Nobody told me your hair falls out, your feet grow. What? And apparently your vision, because the hormonal changes, is also impacted. So she said, you know what? Don't do anything right now. Just kind of wait, see if it's going to settle back down, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I don't know if it settled back down or not, but here we are wearing glasses again. So every time I put glasses on, and every morning you see me here cleaning my glasses, I'm always surprised at how much debris ends up on your glasses, like lint and dust and whatever. And it's occurred to me, this is just one of those odd things that I think about sometimes. All that stuff on your glasses, you have to clean them. But when you don't, for people who don't wear glasses, where does all that stuff go? Is all that going into your eyes? Now, I know your eyelashes act as a natural filter, but still, that's like a lot of stuff in glasses, child, that's being prevented from going into your poor little eyes. I'm like, wow. You got to take care of your beautiful eyes, folks. So thank you so much. Virtuous says, good morning, Sandy. You're looking fine like new wine. I love the colors. Thank you. You guys know I kind of refreshed part of the wardrobe recently, so I appreciate all of you noticing. Good morning to Charm. She says, my mom had the laser done a few years ago, and it doesn't last, unfortunately. Well, I was told, which funny enough, I didn't know at the time that I did it. I went to Bascom Palmer, best eye institute probably in all of America. And I am now told that it actually doesn't last forever, because your eyes do change. As you get older, you need reading glasses and all that kind of stuff. And so, yes, it it's not as bad as it was for sure, but it does sort of revert back a little bit. So Miss Beulah is loving the top as well. Yeah, green is not a color I wear a lot of, but you gotta mix it up. Why not? Try something new. Marshall says, I do, and I have to make sure that they're clean before I put them on. Yeah, I always feel weird if I've got like a lint or something on my glasses. Good morning to Mr. Blair. He says it's some kind of reverb button that needed adjusting. Well, I don't know all the technical stuff. So let me tell you all about my night. So we do have some guests joining us in about 15 minutes. So I don't know if I told you guys this, but Gianna is under punishment. So she has a sweet tooth. Let me tell you what the real issue is, right? Partially my fault for more reasons than one. I have a sweet tooth, so I do sympathize with the child, but I'm trying to curtail the sweet tooth habit before she gets like me, like at my age. And it's like, every luxury chocolate in the world, you have to like fight off, right? So I'm really doing my best to try to teach her self-control and proper diet, because there's nothing worse in the world, I feel like, than growing up in a household where you learn a lot of bad habits. So whether it's like lack of exercise, a poor diet, and all this sort of stuff, right? So we really balance meals, like every parent. You got to eat your vegetables, but like fruits, vegetables. Well, she loves the fruits because they're sweet. The vegetables, outside of broccoli, it's a little bit of a challenge, right? And she loves bread, which isn't something, I'm not a bread person, so I try to tell her already at 5.5, that's a lot of starch. Like, you want a piece of bread, potatoes, bread, rice, And she's like, why can't I just have a slice of bread? She doesn't eat a whole lot. So, she was a preemie. She weighs very, very little. Like, she's super light. And she'll just be like, oh, for dinner, I just want a slice of bread. For breakfast, I want a slice of bread. I'm like, no, you've got to eat other things. Like, it's really important for you to get your nutrients from food, and you got to mix it up. And so it's a daily challenge. So I had bought a little chocolate, one of these Crunch, like it had the little, I forget what the brand is, might be called Crunch or something. But anyway, it was shaped like a little egg for Easter, right? And I had it in the fridge, didn't eat it, just bought it and had it there. Rule number 1, if you don't want to eat something and you're trying to control your diet, don't buy it. That's where we all go wrong, right? So we buy it and we stick it in the fridge, in the pantry, and the temptation is there. And when you're having a weak moment, like little 5.5-year-old Gianna, here we go. So she had taken it out of the fridge. And normally I try to put stuff high where she can't really reach it. But anyway, she reached this one. She took it out last week. And she said, can I have this? And I said, no, Gianna, you can't. Put it back. Well, I didn't think too much about it afterwards until Sunday night. I was in her room and I opened up her drawer and I saw the candy wrapping in the drawer. I was like, what? So I called her and I said, Gigi, what is this? And she like looks at me like, I don't know. And I said, I'm pretty sure this is the same candy wrapping that I told you not to eat on Thursday. And it looks like to me that you snuck it in your room and you ate it anyway. And then she's not even smart about getting rid of the evidence. She like sticks the paper in the drawer where I'm eventually going to find it, right? Mind you, I used to do the same thing to my aunt. I thought this was a move that I would have done back in the day. So anyway, I said, well, I'm going to have to punish you. She's like, what's that? What's punishment? I said, well, punishment or consequences. What's consequences? I said, well, when you do something wrong, the consequences is what happens. And sometimes consequences can be good, but I mean, not when you're doing something wrong. So her punishment was 3 days, no access to anything, no TV, no YouTube, no iPad, nothing for 3 days. She can't go in the master suite where she likes to go and sit down, lie down in the bed and put up her feet and eat her popcorn and watch TV. None of that for 3 days. So we're 2 days down. She's got today, 1 day left. And then tomorrow she can regain, provided nothing else happens between now and tomorrow, she can regain her privileges. So last night on her own accord, she's like, Mommy, I'm really sorry. And even this morning she comes again, I'm sorry. I promise I won't eat chocolate again. I said, the lesson here isn't about eating chocolate. I said, sometimes we all want a little sweet. It's about when Mommy or Daddy says specifically, you cannot do this or you must do this. And then you do not listen. That's the lesson that I want you to get. This isn't even about the chocolate. Yes, in this instance, it was a chocolate, but it could be anything. Your punishment would be there. If I said to you, don't do this or do this, and you disobey me, that's where the punishment comes in. So she's understanding the concept now of punishment and consequences, right? And this is the first time that she's had a privilege like this taken away, other than like sitting in the corner and that sort of thing. And 3 days in the world of a 5 3/4-year-old is a long time. So, folks, all I can tell you is it's been torturous for her, but I think she's getting the lesson. And she said this morning she apologized again. And then she said to me last night when it was bedtime and we were talking about it, she said it was an accident. And so I said to her, I said, an accident? I said, honey child, there's no such things as accident when you do something wrong. So I said, this isn't an accident. This is, you made a decision to do something. And she was like thinking about it as I'm explaining to her. And I said, an accident is when you do something that you have no control over. That's what an accident is. This is not an accident. So I feel like early on we have to teach children these messages, and if they don't get the message early on, then that certainly becomes problematic. And it's about constant reinforcement. Yes, so that was my BVI people calling. All right, so they just wanted to get a heads up on when we'll be going live. Okay, so oh gosh, I got to send you guys, I got to show you all a picture that someone just sent me with them and their CMR mug having some morning tea. Thank you so much. Love it, love it, love it. So yeah, poor little Gianna. And the other thing is, as a parent, especially with sweets, it is very, very difficult, folks, for us to control the whole, sweet situation, because every single birthday party, every single, event that you go to, other parents have, the little goodie bags that you get, they're filled with candy. And I'm just like, why? Give them toys, give them little gadgets. Why is it filled with all this candy? And then when people want to reward children, what do? Here comes the chocolate. So my girlfriend came over on Friday and she hadn't seen Gianna. And she brought her a Easter thing of like M&Ms. I was like, why? So I had to confiscate them right away. So now she's like, well, we can donate, because we donate when we're not going to use stuff. We donate stuff. So she says, Mom, can we donate the candy? And I said, okay, well, who are we going to donate it to? Well, we can donate it to like her friend across the street or other. And I'm like, why would I be trying to give other kids cavities and bad habits? So it's such a challenge, really. And, I do feel horrible throwing stuff away. But candy and sweets and it is a challenge. And like I said, I appreciate her challenge because I myself have a bit of a sweet tooth. So good morning to Marina. Kim Maria, good morning. Says, yes, curb her from now. Bend the tree from its young. The Bible says, train a child up in the way that it should grow. And when they're young, they will not depart from it. Yeah. And it is really, really hard, because children at a very, very young age, they make so many observations about everything that we do. So, my husband always says the best teacher is your own behavior, because they are making observations. You can say whatever you want to a child, but if you're doing the opposite, then the child will go, So it's say what I do what I say and not what I do. So yes, absolutely, my dear. Good morning to Jennifer. Morning, Sabrina. Luis is here. Good morning to Sarah, Richard, another Luis. Good morning to you. Rita, buenos dias. Marshall says, looking good this morning. The green looks good on you. Yeah, I had no idea that the green. Carmelie says, looking beautiful. Sometimes just a color change is all y'all need, all we need. Good morning, Felicia. Irvlyn, of course, has got it locked. Sherry Ann also says, good morning from Pennsylvania. Wow, gorgeous. Tracy says, may the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you. Today is May the 4th. So Olivia, good morning. Good morning, Diamond Princess. And of course, Miss Virtuous is here. Anybody else struggling with dietary issues? The struggle is real. Believe me, I completely understand. Yeah. Thankfully, I have a little bit of a varied palate, so I don't mind. I love salads, actually. I love me a good salad. And I also love most vegetables. There's a couple that I'm like, it's kind of hard to eat them, but you've got to train. And this is what I keep telling my daughter: variety is the spice of life. You've got to be a person who can, know a little bit about this and that, and eat all sorts of different things, and yeah. Malicia, pleasant good morning to you as well. 213 people between YouTube and Facebook this morning. So lovely to see our YouTube folks. Where are you guys at? Do a big shout out. So let me show you a photo that was just sent in by one of our viewers. He is watching the show on his, it looks like Facebook, on his phone, and he's got his CMR coffee mug right there. So look at that. There he is, enjoying a good cup of coffee and watching CMR live and direct at the dining table. Thank you so much. Appreciate the photo. CMR mugs were a hot commodity. I think we have just a few left. We do need to order some more. So we have our 5th anniversary that's coming up here shortly, folks, and we're going to be ordering some CMR merch. You guys have been giving us some ideas, and we're still trying to finalize exactly what we will be ordering. So don't forget, good people, the number is 936-2626. We're going to be getting into the whole BVI situation here this morning with some of their experts so that we can get a real feel for what's going on and then also update you. So in the meantime, this situation with CCC was like super weird about them going into lockdown. Connection information is on me. I may have you, Kevin, if you're watching, I'm going to have you assist this young man. For some reason, he's saying that he cannot get on. So I'm going to just give him your number. And if he messages or calls you, you can kind of help him. I'm not sure why some people seem to have such a difficult time getting on, because it's actually really simple. Like you literally just click a link and that's it. Yeah, I'm not sure why some people have a difficulty with it. You do have to, depending on whether you're doing it from like a computer or anything else, you do have to make sure that your settings, especially for phones, are activated so that you're able to get on. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So hopefully we'll get them sorted out. So this situation at CCC yesterday, where they had to go into a bit of a lockdown, they sent out an email to parents. A little bit strange that they don't have a policy already in place for this sort of thing. Every single school, I mean, this is 2022, folks, and Cayman has lived in somewhat of a bubble for quite an amazingly long time. But, we've never had any sort of a major incident at schools here, sort of, although John Gray had a person show up fighting other kids. But, the point really is you need to have a plan before the major incident. So every time you turn on the news in the US, there's always something crazy going on. Cayman is not necessarily immune from any of that. So as a school administrator, if you're listening this morning and you have no contingency plan for if this happens at our school, what are we going to do? How are the kids going to be evacuated? How do we go into lockdown mode? Y'all need to make sure that there is a plan in place, and that occasionally you do drills as well so that the children know exactly what's happening. So one of the most interesting things when we saw the email that was sent to us, it said, "Dear CCC families, be advised that there was a lockdown this morning." And people in our news group, we were looking at this email thinking, this was not the best written email coming from like the school principal. Like they expected a little bit. Someone said in the group, "What a poorly written email." especially coming from an educational institution, shaking my head. Anyway, what can you do? Someone else says we had an earthquake. You think that would have prompted them to have a plan? Yeah. I mean, how many of us now have an earthquake plan? I don't know, but if you don't, you should, because that is super important. It just always surprises me how little in life we actually plan. I call it the Britney Spears syndrome, right? Remember her song, Oops, whatever, I can't remember the words, but, so it's just like parenting. Nobody plans, y'all don't plan children or anything else, right? You just have them. You're like, oops, I did it again. Oops, got pregnant again. Oops, school gone into lockdown again. It's just like, come on, folks. Having a bit of a contingency plan in life for certain foreseeable situations isn't all that difficult. Hurricane season is right around the corner. Y'all got a plan? Speaking of that, the NRA, the National Roads Authority, and Public Works actually had a hurricane preparation exercise this morning. It might still be ongoing, as a matter of fact. So at least they're planning ahead, and they're going to be joining the show potentially next week to tell us a little bit more about that. So the hurricane preparedness exercise between the Public Works Department and the National Roads Authority took place this morning, starting at 6:45 a.m. So this is where they do this every single year for quite some 35 years now, it says. And, it allows them to test the government's emergency preparedness activities. So they make an assessment of the government facilities. They're installing and repairing hurricane shutters. They are doing a stock taking of storm-related supplies. Because remember, at these hurricane shelters, my apologies, they will have a number of supplies on hand and other things that they need to make sure are still good for consumption, or the facility is still up to par. And so they have began that exercise this morning as well. All right, so I do see our guests in the studio. And so we're going to go ahead and switch the conversation. Someone says, you're lucky you only have a sweet tooth. I have a flipping tusk. The struggle is real, folks. I do completely understand. Boom Flick, buenos dias, mi gente hermoso. Thank you so much for joining us. Milicia is here. Josephine, buenos dias. Aquaman says, good morning, Sandy. I'm locked onto 89.1 FM. Keep the show going. So important that we have a voice once again, Bobo. Aw. The feedback on since we've launched on radio has been phenomenal. Yesterday, I was at the coffee shop here in Savannah, and a gentleman stopped me and he said, oh my God, Sandy, thank you so much for the show. I wish this was on years ago, but you're doing a phenomenal job. And these are bringing all the topics to the community that we need to hear about. And, they say nothing before it's time. So here we are now. You're right where you're supposed to be. Ignacia, good morning to you. Virtuous says, God is telling us something every day to eat less because there's a famine coming. Well, there are food shortages all over the world. I think that Cayman has not necessarily been impacted like a lot of poorer countries. When you're a poor country, you feel it first. And so there's always a famine depending on where you're at. But I do believe that there's certain countries who really, really are struggling now with the provision of some very basic food items. Cayman, we're so lucky. When I hear people complaining about things that are happening here, not to say that we don't have legitimate complaints and we don't want it to get to a certain standard and go in a certain direction, but I always say to them, listen, we've had how many Cubans coming here every other day by boatload? And you know why they're coming here? Because this is still one of the best places in the world to live, and we have got folks, people who would give you an arm and a leg to be able to live the kind of life that most of you are living. So let us be ever so grateful. Charlene, good morning. So good to see you. And Mr. Amelia is here. She says, good morning, Sandy. Have a blessed and victorious day in the Lord. All right. So let us welcome our guests to the program this morning. We do have Miss Amberly Crabb, who is joining us. And Amberly, let me just pull her into the studio 1 second here, folks. We're going to go ahead and grab her. Good morning, Amberly. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So we're going to learn a little bit about Amberly, and she's here to give us all sorts of information about what she has been up to. And it's quite interesting. You guys are the experts, so, I'll leave you to tell us what's happening in BVI. But Amberly is a community activist and entrepreneur. She began her professional career in 2008, my apologies, working for the government of the Virgin Islands in the International Affairs Secretariat. And later on, she moved on to their immigration department. She's since left the public service and has entered private sector, where she owns businesses in the area of commerce, customs brokerage, shipping logistics, and veterinary services. Amberly is also a long-term mentor to at-risk high school girls and sponsors literacy programs for children in her community. So over the past 5 years, speaking of hurricanes, Amberly has spearheaded the hurricane relief efforts to benefit Tortola and the Bahamas, and collaborated with groups to organize peaceful protests against systemic racism, police abuse of power, and more recently, events surrounding the partial suspension of the territory's constitution, which is where we're going to be focusing a lot of our discussion this morning. Because wow, Amberly, a lot has been going on. But not to be left out, we also have Julio Henry. Good morning, Mr. Julio.
Good morning to you. Good morning to your listening audience.
All right. So Mr. Julio was born on the island of Tortola in the British Virgin Islands. He completed his secondary schooling in the United States and has an associate's degree from a college in Washington State. He returned home back in 2001 to work in the tourism and hospitality industry, where he has operated his own business for the last 20 years. Mr. Julio is community-minded and driven to succeed, and he is also here as an active voice against social and political injustice on the rights of his people. He says that I believe in fair due process. I believe in renewed opportunities and commitments by our people to improve, change, implement, adjust, and correct any shortfallings that they may face along life's journey. So he is a voice for the disadvantaged, the helpless, or weak. So thank you guys both so much for joining us this morning. We also have, you're going to kill me for not getting this right, but Shaina joining us from the Virgin Islands. And she is the host, in case you guys have missed it, every other Wednesday. It's simulcast here on Cayman Mall Road of Territories Talk. So, of course, the territories around the region are all looking at this BVI story. So let's back up a little bit and update people on where we are. So in the event that you have been living in a crab hole, because that was probably the only way that you wouldn't know what is happening in the British Virgin Islands, or not, well, in the British Virgin Islands and around it, is that their premier, Mr. Andrew, is it pronounced Fahy? Is that how he pronounces it?
Foy. Andrew Foy.
Foy.
Yes.
Ah, okay. So he has been arrested by the American authorities, and they have a 19-page indictment alleged money laundering and cocaine trafficking, a conspiracy to traffic cocaine. Now, we have to talk a little bit about how Mr. Andrew found himself in this predicament, because I must tell you, I was reading it and thinking, somebody's got to make a movie out of this. This is unbelievable. Were any of you shocked? I mean, I don't know how close you guys are to sort of the politics of what happens in your country, but were any of you shocked by this? I mean, were you shocked as me? I was pretty shocked.
I mean, who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
It's not something that you wake up and you expect to happen in your news or in your country at any given point in time. So I think Julio would share the same sentiment. We all were very, very shocked. And we're still trying to recover from that shock. And we have other things on our plate that has distracted us greatly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, in any event, there's a number of things that, have come out of this. Of course, as a territory, it has far-reaching implications for all of us. And I think all of us are closely monitoring and watching the UK's response to this, because I think that a lot of times we forget that we are overseas territories. So we're not independent countries, and so with that, we are still tied to the motherland, and it's like, I was saying to someone yesterday, I said, listen, we've all been kids and young adults and whatever. You're in your parents' homes. What do they tell you? Well, you're in my house. I got house rules. You're going to follow my house rules. You don't get to live in somebody else's house and dictate to them what the house rules are going to be. So this is the analogy that we use with the UK in terms of, you know, the parent and child sort of analogy. And of course, at some point, one has to wonder if the child doesn't have to move out and move on if you want complete autonomy. But we're going to talk about some of those details. Julio, yesterday, your premier's attorneys, now I don't know where he found these fandangle attorneys from, but they actually were submitting an application on his behalf where they were claiming that he had immunity. So he was actually trying to make this legal argument that he had immunity because he was head of state. Did you hear about this? I'm assuming, Julio?
Yeah. I've been following the news coming from overseas and local. So the premier is entitled to due process. So whatever that entails, whatever the United States have in place, he's entitled to that due process. So whatever legal wrangling the lawyers is trying, I think it's within their purview to do that.
Well, yeah, I guess if you know, whatever's available to you, can certainly try. The interesting news is he was not successful. And so his application was turned down, and we do have a copy of the I guess the notice of invocation of immunity. So this is the United States of America. This is their response to that. Very simple 3-page document, folks. And essentially, let me make sure you guys can see a little bit of this. Essentially, they have turned down his application. So it says that he accepted thousands of dollars in bribes and planned to accept even more. And on May the 2nd, the defendant filed a so-called notice of invocation of immunity, in which he purported to claim immunity from the drug trafficking and money laundering crimes that he committed. This is interesting because I thought to myself, as someone who has a law degree and a little bit of legal knowledge, when you invoke this particular, thing, you're basically, I think you're pretty much admitting that you did it. I mean, this is where I thought, strategically, I'm not too sure that this might have been the best policy.
Right.
So, sorry, Amberly?
No, I was going to say now, while I understand that position, I think it's important to understand that there are multiple things happening for us as a territory here in the Virgin Islands right now. And while the situation with our premier seemed to have captured the headlines, that has caused a spiral in what was our already ongoing commission of inquiry into our administration, the two issues now compounded has tossed us in a very interesting space where our constitution lies on the line. And it is a very fluid situation that we are dealing with daily on the ground every day. And while the premier situation is indeed a serious one, there's a country at stake here that has to continue. So I think it's important for us to actually look at the territory. To look at the territory and what the people here are going through and demanding and requesting and what's happening on the ground, and allow due process and the legal system and what happened with our premier, as unfortunate as it is for us as a territory, to allow that to run its course. Because
at some point
take over the identity of who we are as a territory. Yes, it's shocking. Yes, it has implications, but the territory still remains and the people still remain. And at heart, fundamentally, we are not the situation that we're tossed in right now. So I prefer really to deal with who we are as a people, and to educate and get that message out there, because we're not hearing much about that versus the shocking element of the premier has.
But in all fairness, Amberly, you wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for him. So we can't really separate.
Well, that's not true. That's not true.
Our governor, educate us. Yes.
Our governor made the statement that the two are not connected. So unless there's a conspiracy, they're not connected. We had a commission of inquiry that was placed on the territory months before anything related to the premier.
And
It's
what was that,
unfortunate.
Commissioner? Tell us a little bit about that inquiry. What is that all about?
It's unfortunate that the premier found himself in that situation. None of us are condoning that situation. We're not in agreement with it. But again, the two are two different situations. One is the ownership and governance of this territory. We are not property. We are individuals. We are a advancing country, and we are now coming together to say that despite whatever challenges we're having with our governance, the UK responsibility now is to help us get on track, not to come in and take over the country, to help us get on track. Like every other nation, even the independent ones that are having challenges with governance, that are having issues with corruption, you're going to always find those things going on. It's up to the authorities and the governing bodies to ensure that good governance is adhered to. So this is where we are right now.
Well, explain to us, because I must tell you, although we share, the fact that we're both overseas territories, I think every OT can be so incredibly different. And I personally don't know anything about BVI politics until now. I'm starting to learn a little bit about who some of your key players are. So explain to us what this inquiry was about before this happened last week. Well, what does that have to do with?
Emily, you want to check it? Or you want me to check it?
When our previous governor was departing at the end of his term, a commission of inquiry was requested to look into whether or not there were any dishonesty or any issues within our public sector or public service with public officials. And there was a requirement to provide the findings, of course, and any recommendations to fix any issues of structural, procedural challenges that are either dated or that cause some form of disruption in our course of public administration. So an inquiry was launched into that. Based on the findings of the inquiry, I don't know that any person in the Virgin Islands have had the opportunity to thoroughly go through the report, because we've only gotten the report on Friday. We've gotten
all of this went down on Friday.
Yes,
so
we've gotten over 900 document on Friday, and here we are now on Monday morning, now into Wednesday, now deciding the future and fate of our country on the basis of suspending our constitution based on the primary recommendation, the first recommendation from those findings on a report that should have been delivered based on your timeline in June. So if the two are not connected, why are we now here being rushed to have to process and go through a 900-page document, make a decision, because there's something else happening in another space, unfortunately, with our leader? I think we need to realize, if they are indeed two separate issues, let them run their course individually. And if there are issues within our public service, within our public sector, there's a conversation of whose responsibility it is. The local government is responsible for policy. The government is responsible for governance and administration. And there seems to be some disconnect there on taking responsibility. Either way, if we need to fix issues within our service, then let's have a conversation as governor. As you rightfully mentioned, to some extent, we are OTs and there's a certain relationship. How can you assist us in rectifying these systems? How can you assist us in getting a modernized government or modernized structure, versus suspending my constitution and doing it for me? What's the basis for suspending my constitution? I think that is what is unclear.
Well, let's read some of the statements that have been made by Governor. His name is, oh gosh, let me just tell you. John Rankin, Mr. John Rankin, very interesting last name. Rankin is a popular Cayman name, by the way. But he issued a statement on Thursday, April the 22nd at 3:55 p.m. And he says here that I'd like to provide an update for the people of the British Virgin Islands and recent law enforcement action taken by the United States Drug Enforcement Agency, which I have been informed today. It is my duty as governor to inform you that this morning, the Honorable Premier, Andrew Foy. Is that a French name? Was detained in Miami on charges related to conspiracy to import a controlled substance and money laundering. As this concerns the arrest of a British citizen, the US government has informed the UK government of this arrest as part of the usual process followed when a British citizen is arrested abroad. The UK government has subsequently informed me as governor. As this is a live US investigation, I have no further information on the arrest, nor can I comment any further on it. However, what I can confirm is that the arrest was a US operation led by the DEA, and it's not linked to the Commission of Inquiry report. The remit of the Commission of Inquiry focused on governance and corruption and was not a criminal investigation into the illegal drug trade. To avoid unnecessary speculation, I intend to move forward urgently on publication of the inquiry report to the people of the BVI, can see its contents and its recommendations in the areas it addresses. I will have a call with Minister Milling and the acting Premier, Honorable Natalio Wheatley, tomorrow to discuss further engagement between the UK and BVI on this urgent issue. I realize that this will be shocking news for the people in the territory, and I will call for calm at this time. The Honorable Deputy Premier, Natalio Wheatley, will remain acting Premier of the territory, and I will discuss with him and Cabinet the way forward in continuing to support the good governance of the territory. And I'll provide a further update in due course. So he has made it very clear in his statement of last week, Thursday, that the two are completely unrelated and that he did indeed, given this new development. So they're unrelated, but, obviously, given this new development, he has said that to prove to the people, I suppose, that they're unrelated, that he would actually then, expedite the release of the increase. So maybe they were just finalizing some typesetting of it. Now let's look at another statement here from the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss here in the UK. She also issued a statement on April the 29th ahead of the publication of the Commission of Inquiry report into governance and BVI. So she said the following, these are quotes from her: "The arrest yesterday of the Premier of the British Virgin Islands and charges related to drug trafficking and money laundering is extremely concerning and underlines the need for urgent action. In January of 2021, we set out significant concerns about the deteriorating state of governance in the British Virgin Islands, as well as the potential vulnerability of the islands to serious organized crime. The UK government supported the then governor's decision to launch an independent inquiry into governance of the territory. The inquiry report published today by the governor shows clearly that substantial legislative and constitutional change is required to restore the standards of governance that the people of the British Virgin Islands are entitled to. I have instructed the Minister for the Overseas Territories to travel to the territory immediately to speak to the governor and key stakeholders, and we will then announce a clear path forward. The overseas territories are a core part of the UK family. The UK government is committed to the security and well-being of the people of the British Virgin Islands." So there's no final decision that has been made yet, but obviously it's on the table that the UK could take complete control, essentially, of the operations and the runnings of the BVI, which is what you guys are protesting.
Yes, it is what we're protesting. And as I mentioned earlier, it's very fluid on the ground right now because our members of our House of Assembly, they continue to meet. They have been meeting all through the night and yesterday. And I think we do expect to hear from them shortly in terms of a solution that they would have come to move the country in the right direction, or I should say on a different path versus what we are currently tossed into, where that all stands right now. While you were reading Madam Milling's report or statement that she made or she released, allude into the rampant corruption and stuff in the territory, this is where our concern lies. If there's corruption within the territory, the governor is responsible for police and security. Then that means you've been sitting here and not doing your job all along, or you've been standing by. If there is, right? If we look at our systems, there has been more police officers brought before the courts, tried, convicted. A number of the drug charges that has happened, including recent ones. We've had a container of stuff, found in police yards, in their properties. There are no drastic measures being required within the police force. But you want to suspend my constitution on the basis of a commission of inquiry that the recommendations in a number of instances are to investigate further. So there we have suspend their constitution, and then we have about 43 other things that are either very minimal or calls for further investigation. So I don't understand, really, why is it okay for you to allude to all this corruption that's happening under your watch, your responsibility, and even within your force? But you can clean that up. And in the interim, because it's taken place in the territory, and now whether a premier has been caught in this situation, I don't know the details of the facts. I only know what's released to me. And I don't even know if he's had his day in court. I don't know that. I'm not trying to get involved in that. What we're trying to say as a people we are not that. And a lot of what is happening and has happened, it has been under your watch. So why suspend my constitution to give you full control of the very problem that you're complaining exists?
Except it's actually the previous governor, as you said, who called this. So technically, it sounds like this governor was actually just in a holding pattern while this inquiry was being undertaken, and probably any changes in light of an investigation that was already underway would not have been necessarily effective.
Let me add to what my colleague just mentioned. It really doesn't matter which governor or the name of the governor sits in that sits in office. The point is that for the last 3 or 4 governors in this territory, the problems that they're referring to, they said systemic. They said systemic. That means it falls within their governance as well. So all of them who were here before, the one who cited corruption, who called for the COI, he is just as guilty as the one who's sitting there now. The one who's there now is his time to execute. In my opinion, there's more to this story than just bad governance. There's more to it. And if your overarching recommendation is to suspend the Constitution, but not look at putting mechanisms nor problem-solving mechanism in place, then there must be another agenda. It can't be about good governance, because in the end of the governor's statement, he said, to ensure the continuation of good governance. So he recognized that there's still good governance in the territory, but we have some issues within the good governance. Why is it, and where is the reason to support a full suspension of our Constitution? Only the section where our local people have a voice, and the part where they're responsible for, they're not suspending. Something is wrong. Something is wrong.
That is why we're protesting, because it's obviously not about a commission of inquiry. Because if there's corruption that you're alluding to for a commission of inquiry that's required, you set out a clear path into delivering these findings. The very report you were able to release to us in a matter of 24 hours, we had to wait initially until June. It was what, Julio, about a week ago, they gave us the timeline to the release of the report.
Well, let's preempt that conversation. Remember, the commission of inquiry was already completed by the beginning of this year.
Yeah,
it was already completed.
So it was just a matter of when they were going to release it, I think.
Well, let's look at it, and we want the public to know that for some reason, some unknown reason, there was a 3 months extension There wasn't much more investigation to happen. But they asked for a 3-month extension. And it somehow tied in to the arrest of the premier. And then there's this false sense of urgency to attract, to have the minister come to the territory to discuss problems that you are aware of 3 months ago. So really and truly, where's the sense of urgency and what exactly is it about? How is it more important one day after the announcement of the arrest of the premier and not 3 months ago when the report was actually completed?
If they're not related.
And I mean,
if they're not related, something needs to be, we need to ask those questions. They're very important. It's their timeline. Why was the release of the report delayed 3 months? Why was it created such a sense of urgency when the report is the same 3 months ago versus now when you released it?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it is probably a matter of optics. Like the world is now looking at BVI because of this arrest last week and going, what is happening in that country? And so the UK, I'm sure, is feeling some sort of pressure, maybe from the US authorities and others, because this also reflects poorly on them. And they're trying to say, well, hey, we've had concerns. I think someone mentioned in the comment that obviously Jared says it seems like the UK was well aware of drug problems in the BVI and other issues. And so I think what they're now trying to do is say, hold on, don't look at us. We had concerns, and let's release this 946-page document that shows you the concerns that we had and the fact that, you know, we have been carrying out a substantial investigation into this. Now, this is
wait. Hold on, one second. Just to be clear, nowhere in the report identify areas of concern when it relates to drugs. Amberly said to you earlier that there have been situations with drug smuggling in a territory, but it was under the governor's watch and the police watch. It is very suspicious that the specific part that relate to that have not been in the report.
In the report, the
police this almost 1,000-page report has no concerns
about
none,
the police force.
None, no concern, none.
Nothing that falls under the governor's portfolio is under investigation.
And as a matter of fact, the report suggests the recommendation is that the police chief will be given the authority independently to do his own cleaning up. Yes. But no further investigation should be done or conducted on the police department. And the police in our country, in this country, under the Constitution, is managed by the governor. The police and the governor together manage the security of this country.
So
I mean, it says here at point 3, the evidence looked at as a whole paints a clear picture, with limited exceptions in terms of governance, i.e. how government makes and implements decisions. The people of the BVI have been badly served in recent years, very badly indeed. I mean, do the electorate feel that way? Do you guys feel that way, or is this a
let's educate.
Democratic process. I mean, if we feel so badly served, we would have been on the streets protesting to get our government removed. Any 1 second, Julio, but as within any democratic process, you are going to have the yays and the nays. And there are those who will be on the opposition side who will feel like things are going more in favor of people who are in support of the government, and there will be that friction back and forth. That's what happens in a democracy. If we don't like it, we can either force for an early election, or when the election comes around, we can get rid of the party that wasn't doing their job. We don't say, listen, it is so horrible, we don't know what to do, take us to a dictatorship. Who takes such draconian measures when our Constitution speaks to you trying to establish a modern relationship with us towards our self-governance and our independence? Who does that?
We also need to educate our public. I'm not sure if you guys operate the same way, but I assume you do. In our Constitution, in our cabinet, the governor or a representative of the governor's office sits in our cabinet. Despite not having a vote, despite not having a vote. They also influence decision making coming from cabinet. They also have a voice in that debate. In many of the instances, anything that falls under the governor's group, meaning when the governor himself is responsible for areas of discussion in cabinet, he is also expecting a particular result from the discussion. So he doesn't have to say,
Uh-oh, Julio, your audio.
It looks like your audio.
Your audio is out.
Oh gosh, he's still talking.
But what
Julio,
I want to say
I'm not
was
sure.
his audio.
Sorry, Amberly, one quick second for me. Julio, we can't hear you. But I'm gonna mute him in any event. Hopefully he'll catch on in a second that we can't hear you. But our listeners have asked that, especially I think on radio. All right, Julio, we couldn't hear you at all for that last bit, so I'm not sure what happened. But our audience have said that if you're speaking over each other, they can't really hear it. So I know that this is a very emotive situation, obviously, and that both of you are very, very passionate about this. So Amberly, let's go ahead and have your point, and then Julio will circle back to you so that you can kind of repeat that last bit that you were saying.
No, I was just trying to stick a pin in to add just to what he was saying so that he can continue flowing. In addition to the governor sitting in cabinet, he can also present papers to cabinet for a vote and a decision by the government. If there has been concerns, where did you ever submit any papers to cabinet on issues with some of those concerns? Was that done? These are things that were his direct duty. You have never done that. So you're just as complicit in all of this.
Right.
So
but he's not there to take an active role constitutionally in the running of the government. Is that correct?
No,
that's how it is here.
So right. So I think why the fight is so important for us. And I think the message that's not getting out there about us as a Virgin Islands people is some of our history after we were emancipated. We were left. So the uniqueness of our relationship with the UK is because of the treatment that they've given us over the years after we were emancipated. They left our islands for a bird sanctuary. They didn't expect that there was anything that can happen. So we had to craft our own path forward because of our relationship and our geographic location with what was the Danish West Indies, now the US Virgin Islands. We were able to piggyback off of their structures and their systems, and our forefathers went there to survive, to feed us. And we came up in that way. So it's why we have closer relationships with the US government and the US president. It's why our structures and our systems of democracy don't resemble those in the UK. It is why it's a clear distinction. We can't relate to each other. They don't understand our systems because we've had to build them from scratch. We've had to rely on relationships with other countries to help us. We have had to do all of that. It is important to also note the only thing to this date, from our emancipation to this date, that we have gotten from the UK is a prison. They have not contributed anything else. They don't help us towards education. Whatever we ask for, we don't need. You can finance on your own, whatever we ask for. So it is almost as a parent who gave birth to a child, abandoned the child. The child grew up and became successful. Now, the child can not only benefit you, the child competes in your international sphere. Because remember, the UK don't produce anything. They don't make anything. Right? They don't manufacture anything. So all they have to hold on to is their economic stance of financial services or finance. And we compete and dominate in that sphere. So now that you've left the EU and there's all of this that's going on, your systems and structures are not even stable, but you're trying to grasp and control ours after you have left us.
And these are some of the Amberly, these are some of the same concerns that we here in the Cayman Islands have as an overseas territory. I mean, you know, there is this overarching belief by a lot of people in this country that the relationship is not a symbiotic one. It is perhaps one where the host is actually a parasite of sorts. And so many will argue that the concept of overseas territories and what we have continued to be engaged in with the UK is not the most beneficial situation to us. But I just want to read point 4 and 5, and then we do have a caller and some questions that are coming in for our guests as well. Point 4 of the summary says, almost everywhere, the principles of good governance, such as openness, transparency, and even the rule of law, are ignored. In many important areas of government, including the procurement of contracts, grants of assistance, appointments to statutory boards, the disposal of crown land, and the grant of residence and belonger status, discretionary decisions are made by elected officials, usually ministers, on the basis of no criteria, or patently inadequate and or unpublished criteria, or criteria which are as often as not simply ignored. They can and do make decisions which expend huge sums of public money and affect the lives of all of those who live in the BVI as they wish, without applying any objective criteria, without giving any reason, and without fearing any comeback. Number 5 says the relevant elected officials are well aware of this chronic lack of governance, and the Auditor General and Director of the Internal Audit Department, whose job it is to audit government accounts and government projects, have consistently reported on these failures, indicated the dishonesty to which they might give rise and which they might obscure, and identified what needs to be done to prevent their reoccurrence. These auditors have been brave, forthright, and clear in both their criticisms and their recommendations, but they have been consistently ignored. So we do have a caller who's joining the program. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the Cold Hard Truth.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Am I understanding correctly that at no time the governor proposed any legislation which the cabinet refused to move forward that would rectify the policing and any breakdown in governance issues? Is that correct?
Not
Absolutely
that
none. Not that we're aware of.
And we've been asking if you've done it and it didn't make it to the public, show us.
And it didn't make it to the report as well.
Trying. Not that I'm aware.
If that's the case, then how could it be claimed that the government should be removed because the UK needs to do the right thing? It would sound to me as if the local government was never given an opportunity to do the right thing, and at no time did they refuse to bring the needed legislation, or in the perception of the governor that would be, to address whatever concerns the UK might have. And it seems to me that the UK is trigger happy on the issue of direct rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is why we're fighting, because this is about direct rule. This is about taking back over these Virgin Islands that you've once abandoned, and there's no other basis for any of it. Because
go ahead. Finish it.
No, you can go.
I just want to add, before I forget my thoughts on the recommendation and the points that you're reading. At no point, no matter how drastic or draconian the points may seem, it does not validate, nor does it give rise to a taking over of the country. What it says to me in those points is that, just like the caller just asked, this would have been the step or the time for the governor and the UK to say, okay, guys, let's come in the room together. Let's sit down. You have certain responsibility in certain areas. We have certain responsibility in other areas. Let's figure out how we can curb some of the behaviors according to the governor. But again, there's a bigger agenda at play here, and I need to say this. This is not just about good governance. This is about a global British agenda. You show incompetence. You show the inability of the local government to manage their own resources. Emily alluded to the UK leaving the EU, and now these territories are now becoming more important because of the vast variety of natural resources and the potential for economic growth. So it's not about good governance, because if you are really concerned about good governance, we have had 4 governors before this commission of inquiry, where the conversation about bad governance, local governance, has always been on the table. And we have seen legislation come down from the United Kingdom time after time to help curb spending, borrowing guidelines, all of this. And many of our governments have been adhering to those regulations. So there's absolutely no reason, none in the report, that would justify a taking over of this country. None.
And if I can just add, with the whole stress and emphasis on good governance, direct rule is not good governance. That is less transparent than a democracy. Who polices the police? So you have a proven track record. Every about 3 weeks, police officers are dragged before the courts. And Julio can correct me if I'm wrong. Yes. You don't see that. You don't see that of public servants. You don't see that of our ministers. So if there's an issue at hand at this moment, within whether the last 3 years, within whether the last 4 years, if there's an issue at hand, let's address that issue. Give our elected representative the opportunity to do good by us, the people. Let us hold their hand to the fire and say, listen, fix this. You have gotten us in this position, fix this, or we will exercise our democratic right and we will have you removed from office. You don't come in and say to me, oh, we need good governance. Get rid of 13 elected representatives and allow one to sit.
Right. I mean, is it possible that the people, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be the first time anywhere in the world, that the people themselves are not prepared to make those tough decisions? Maybe the people don't see their government and the BVI as being corrupt, even if they are.
No, I don't think that's the issue. I think what it is, because of the interest in relationship between the governor and his responsibilities and duties and the elected officials and their responsibilities and duties, we need to play off of each other. Right. So if the governor is responsible for governance and structures within our service and so forth, and nothing is being done there, and our government or local government is responsible for policies and execution of those things, if there's no structure and no systems, if they're not properly aligned, how can we run effectively and efficiently through them? We can't do that. There will be issues. There will be hiccups. So now that we have the attention of everyone, now that we understand the seriousness and the magnitude of this, and we've known some of these issues exist, let us clean house. The same way you have allowed the police to independently clean his house, and they're still coming before the courts, let us clean our house. We don't need you now to come and say, each of you are incapable. There's no capable person here in the BVI. And, you know, the people are just so badly disenfranchised and things are so terrible here on the ground that I need to step in and take rule. That is draconian. That is not progressive. And it is certainly not a modern state of relationship or governance.
Okay. So let's just pause there for one quick second. I just want to read a few comments, and I do notice someone was inquiring about how to join the program. So there's a couple ways that you can do it, folks. I'm going to go ahead and post the link so you can join in. I do see Miss Katura. We're going to get to you in just a second here, who wants to jump in the conversation. You can join in video call. I've just put the link in the comment section. You can also call the number here in the Cayman Islands, which is area code 345-936-2626. as well. So we do have some viewers who are making comments. So Flashpoint says the reality of the relationship with the UK is that they will do what needs to be done to destroy the financial services sector in both the Cayman Islands and the BVI as soon as we are independent. Carol makes the point. She says, look at what happens to Cayman auditors. Every time that they make recommendations and point out things, they promptly lose their contract and get replaced. Melissa says, great point, caller. We thank you for your observation. Shayna says, if we're in a partnership with the UK, the approach should not be draconian and violate our rights to democracy. Eden, good morning, Eden. Eden says, good morning. Thank you, Sandy. And huge thanks to the awesome guests for this important discussion among our Caribbean people. Denny, any further comments?
Yes. Is there a provision in the BVI Constitution regarding proportionality?
Sorry?
Proportionality.
Proportionality.
Explain that for me. And what specific reason?
Well, if you want to kill a yellow bird, you don't use a cannon. Right?
We'll have to review the Constitution, but right now our Constitution is written in such a way that gives the governor overarching executive authority. So I think the only recourse we have as a country, as a government, the representative, is when they sit in cabinet to be able to carry the voice of the people and the policies. Other than that, everything else is managed and the governor has the final say.
Yeah, to the answer to your question, caller, it's no. There's none. Caller, he's online.
It's unfortunate that you don't have that provision, but proportionality is a provision that the UK government has to abide by, and your constitution order needs to be interpreted in light of that, the UK's common law provisions. So what the rules are in the UK is how your constitution order would be interpreted, because it's a regulation made by the UK government, not a local statute. And so what I'm saying is that the UK might express the desire to want to control BVI more directly, but is it reasonable to, first of all, not give the government an opportunity to put in place whatever measures are needed to address crime, and then claim that the government should be suspended? That seems really wrong to me. If the governor had said, look, I need you to pass this bill because this will help me improve the police services, it'll make us safer, it'll deal with corruption, and then the government refused to do it, then they could say, well, okay, we need to do something about you.
Okay.
But they never did that.
Yeah, leave us there, Denny. We do have an international caller who's also trying to join the program on the phone line. Thank you so much. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the Cold Hard Truth.
Hello. Am I on?
Yes, you are. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Sandy. This is Billy Simamba here. I just want to weigh in on a couple of things regarding the BVI. First of all, very, very quickly, I was very, very touched by the fact that Andrew Foy and Olin Brian Maynard were arrested, because when I used to work in the British Virgin Islands, I was there for 4 years, sometimes even acting as Attorney General. I got to know the two of them quite well. So that really touched at my heart. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is this. First of all, I agree with the assertion that taking over the government is not the solution. You see, in the Bible, they say, physician, heal thyself. If you look at the UK, it's a good country. Let's not generalize. It's a good country. But look at some of the scandals they've had. There was an arms sales scandal to the Middle East, to a certain named country there. It turned out that they were corrupt sales up to the very highest of government. There was a scandal about knighthoods being given out for campaign contributions. I could go on and on. But nobody ever said, although it's not even practical, you can't say that you want to take over the government. But the point I'm trying to make is this. A lot of what came out in the report, those are things which governments always face every day. For example, I was reading last night, it was said, oh, but you see, when they were appointing people to different boards, statutory boards, there are no criteria. You know, they tend to just, once a new government comes in, then they bring in their own people. But that happens everywhere, even in some of the more developed countries. So those are not sort of like really terrible, terrible things that should call for the taking over of a government. It shouldn't at all. Now, let me also say something about what the previous caller said about proportionality. What he was referring to, because I've discussed it with him dozens of times. You see, under the Section 19 of the Constitution of the Cayman Islands, it says that all decisions of public authorities must be lawful, rational, proportionate, and procedurally fair. What he was saying basically is that this thing where now they want to take over the government, is it proportional to the problems that exist there? Because if it was, say, an action of judicial review, the court would say, no. You have killed a fly here. You're trying to kill a fly here with a sledgehammer. Why don't they take the provisions of that report, which are very common all over the world? There are scandals. In Australia, they were, sorry to digress, in Australia, they were exporting metals under false pretenses for a long, long time. But what they did was they said, okay, these are the recommendations. And the British government, if I can come back to the BVI, the British government now can say, we are going to put in certain conditions that you have to enact this legislation by this date, enact this legislation by that date. We will give you technical help if you want for you to be able to do it within the time allowed. Taking over the government, there is an ulterior motive. There is this idea that people of color cannot govern themselves. They have to be supervised altogether. I'm sorry, I'll be very brazen about it. And that the solution is not to work with them, but to tell them what to do. Thanks very much. It's good to see people from the BVI discuss this issue.
Yes, thank you, my dear.
Very much.
So, I mean,
if I can just,
sure.
If I can just add a little on to what the caller said on the end, telling us what to do because we can't govern ourselves. It's one of the very problems we're having right now at this moment, because here you are, the overseas territories representative, you're coming in and saying, we're coming in to have talks based on what has happened to see if we can come up with a solution. And we are not a foolish people. The Virgin Islands, we're very small. It's a very unique place. You have had people here on the ground for quite some weeks, and it's a large amount of people that cannot justify to us that you have not already made a decision. You're not going to incur all this expense to bring people here if you really intend to sit at the round table and see how we can come up with a solution. You're coming with a solution for us, and you're putting our backs against the wall, and you're forcing us. So even the decisions that we make right now, we're making them under pressure and not a clear sound head. So it's almost as if you are setting us up all again, and you're going to say, well, I came to have conversations, but really you came with a decision, because we are being forced towards, okay, if it's not this way, then I will have to suspend your constitution. That is not right. That's not a conversation.
Keturah is going to be joining us. I believe you're ready. I have Jaloma who's on, but Jaloma, it says device not connected. So you might want to just double check your feed. So folks, there's two ways in which you can join the program. You can give us a call on the phone line, which is 345-936-2626. That's direct call and regular phone. You can call via WhatsApp on that as well, because I know some of you might be overseas and you're looking to save on some phone charges. And in addition to that, you can also join via video link. So let's just see if Ms. Keturah is ready for us. We just need you to unmute your mic, Ms. Keturah. Are you there? Okay, so it looks like she might have stepped away. So when she's ready, she'll come back to us. Jared, you've got some comments that you'd like to add to the conversation?
Yes, Miss Sandy. You know this not coming out of anywhere, right?
Your mic is horrible, by the way. But go on. I don't know what's you're getting some kind of staticky.
Oh, I think I have the because I have it on the computer.
Yeah. So let's try to fix that. No, we can't hear you at all now.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. We can still hear you, but it's not any better. But
okay. Yeah. Well, the issue primarily seems to be with the spending that the BVI government has done and the UK's impression on them not cutting it, because I did read the report and it did say okay, usually 4% of the budget. Now, as it pertains to the security problems, there's a security council which the commissioner, the attorney general, sits on. So it's a bit behoovering that the UK is going to act surprised when the Foreign Commonwealth Office is well aware, as is the secretary, who they always send over on casual checkups, that they're not privy. They are privy. And if it is, I would want to be accusatory and say it was a setup. But why is the US in the Caribbean? Why is the US in the Caribbean, Sandy? The US always does that. Nobody's looking at the issue of, you can call it oversight, whatever. Unless you're going to Puerto Rico or the US Virgin Islands, come on.
I'm not sure I understand the question. So the question is, why is the US always in the Caribbean doing what?
I think to add clarity. Sorry.
What I'm saying, Sandy, is that certain bodies, governments, US and the UK, like to always come into certain Caribbean jurisdictions and say, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that. And that is not the case, because the US pretty much planted a setup for the premier, because they knew they had the drug ringer, right?
Well, let's be very clear about this, because I don't want us to put what has happened with the BVI premier at the foot of the US government, right? We have an indictment paper and people on audio and video saying that they have been in the drug running business for 20 years in the BVI, and for 20 years they've been untouched by whomever. At some point, the authorities are going to come knocking at your door, and if your own government is unable to do so, you might get caught up in a US sting operation. So, you know, what I find so interesting, what I find so incredibly interesting about the sting operation is how someone can come to you as a total stranger and put this deal to you, and you so willingly accept it. If that's not proof, then I don't know anything about Andrew Fye, whatever his name is. But if that's not proof that he's corrupt at his core, so when his director report said, "Oh, he's a little bit crooked sometimes," it sounds to me like he's a little bit crooked all the time. Okay. So let's not excuse bad behavior, because we don't do that in Whole Hard Truth.
We have
you know, if somebody falls for sting operation, that sort of thing happens every single day. If you are a principled person and a person who isn't involved in money laundering, who isn't involved in having your country be used as a transport point to the other countries for drugs, and you know, it was so shocking to me that not only were they willing to use their own country as a transport point, but the son of the port director was saying, "Oh, I actually need some of that good cocaine to stay right here in the BVI, so I can make money off of it." Okay. So, Jared, be very, very clear here.
Okay, so
I don't ever condone wrongdoing in any way, shape, or form. If you get caught, you get caught.
My question is: so for 20 years, you mean to tell me the governor of the BVI, previous ones, did not know that there was a drug problem? They did, and the lack of
can we all not say to some extent that all territories and all jurisdictions and all countries have a drug problem, and it's a matter of catching the people?
Let's not lose sight of that is not a problem for the local government to fix. The police is responsible for security and law and order and for corruption. So if you have a problem, a 20-year drug problem, and for 20 years I've had a governor, then you're complicit. I don't understand. I don't.
The UK knows, but they haven't.
And
can I add
to this?
Can I add my 2 cents?
20 years. Your police officers have been brought before the courts more than my government representatives and officials.
Can I add my 2 cents? I just want to be clear. on the affidavit, since we brought up and invoked the Premier's conversation again, it is clear the information needs to be properly laid out. The CS, who was the first point of contact, who supposedly was communicating, somehow came to the island, an undercover DEA agent came to the island specifically to do business, high-level drug business, and he specifically said in the very beginning that he wanted a high-level official pointing at Andrew Foy. Decided that he was going to go and talk to the chief security officer for Andrew Foy. Then all of a sudden, the other set of the group of people, the Hezbollah people, suggested, no, maybe we could talk to Maynard first, get her involved, and then she, in turn, will get Andrew Foy involved. The question is this, regardless of what happened, it's wrong. Nonetheless, what the Premier got himself involved in is wrong. And I agree with you to some degree that, you know, if you somebody with integrity and so forth, you don't get yourself involved. You see the setup, you leave it alone. But we must question whether or not he was a target, whether or not it was a organized something with the United Kingdom government and the US in conjunction with the DEA, because the governor said that he did not know. He did not know that the DEA was doing an operation in the territory. I find that hard to believe, knowing that a government agency such as the DEA would be running a sting operation on a head of state in another country without that country head of state knowing something is wrong. Somebody needs to ask those questions.
I think that's a regular, I think they do it all the time, but we do have another.
No. DEA cannot operate outside a jurisdiction without the knowing, without the knowledge of the government they're operating in. It's a joint effort.
Okay.
There's international laws that governs that.
I mean, they have foreign offices in up to 60, has 91
They don't have no foreign office in our country.
And 69.
They don't have no foreign office in the BVI. They do not have any foreign office in the BVI.
Well, it says that it becomes part of the U.S. embassy mission. So do they have an embassy in BVI?
No, they don't. No embassy, no foreign office, no consulate, none.
That's a logistical question that we can certainly find out in terms of what their remit is.
Yeah, I think
No, the question that we need to ask is whether or not the governor was being truthful. Was he aware that there was an operation in conjunction with the DEA in the BVI? That's the real question.
Yes, he was aware.
All right, we do have Ms. Richardson who's joining the program. Good morning, madam. How are you?
Salama, good morning to everyone on this panel.
Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, because I'm joining in the conversation, I've been listening for a while, so I'll just jump in where you guys are already at, and then I will bring my point across. First of all, the governor was fully aware of this sting operation that was happening. It was a joint collaboration between the US and the UK. In order to be here, and a lot of people don't understand how federals, especially DEAs, work outside their jurisdiction. They will first contact the head of security in your country. They will then place something before them as to why and who I'm investigating and the cause for my investigation. They also have to give a layout to the head of security as to each and everything that they are doing, so that that person is fully aware. So when there were all those drugs that were being found all over the place and all that kinds of stuff, the governor was never moved because he knew that it was part of that strategy. He was fully aware. So again, that they could not come here to do any kind of operation without first that go ahead from the governor. The head of security has to give that, and that person is the governor. Second of all, when you look at how the sting operation went by, no person who is any sort of drug dealer who is trying to move their load from point A to point B will care nothing about the COI or any of your political affairs in your country. They do not care. All they care about is moving my load from point A to point B and making sure that I get my money. That's all they care about. They do not strategically ask questions about the COI, strategically ask questions concerning shell companies, which will then infiltrate the FSC or the financial structure of that country. These questions, if persons are looking carefully, were strategically placed in order to bring everything together. So now they're tying corruption to the country, and they're trying to mesh all of these things together. So that way they can have a valid reason for saying, I want to take over your country. Now, if you look at the UK's track record, they are one of the most investigated governments there is. The most corruption that you can find, you will find in the UK. They sanctioned Russia not too long ago, yet 3/4 of London is owned by Russian tyrants. They left and did this whole Brexit thing, and now they're gunning for different countries that they can find resources, because the UK cannot sustain themselves, which is why they are known as colonizers all throughout history. In order to have something, someone else has to give it to us. So who are we conquering? And our situation is not unique. They attacked the Caymans first. Yeah. And they came with the exact same playbook. If you look at what happened in the Cayman and compare it to what's happening here now, it is no different. The only thing are the players are different. And we are not the last on the list, because very few people are talking about this, but they're already talking about going to do a COI in Montserrat. Montserrat barely has 500 people, yet they are one of the richest people in resources in the Caribbean. Their land is so fertile, you can grow almost anything over there. Plus, anywhere that you find volcanoes, you find gold, diamond, and you find oil. This is not something.
Let me just clarify one point here, because I think this is something that has creeped into the conversation that's important. So one person makes the following observation. They said, if the US government is operating in your country, you don't know it. That's what the CIA and DEA does. Their only obligation is to protect the United States. They don't owe that country anything. They flew into Pakistan and killed bin Laden and didn't tell a single soul, but they wouldn't, because they couldn't trust the local government. So to be clear, both the CIA and the DEA have that power. Now, I can't tell you exactly where that power comes. You can argue maybe that the US is overreaching, but that's a completely different
well, here's the thing. They didn't trust the Pakistanis people, because the Pakistanis people are not like BVI people who sit around and allow the government, hold on, and allow the governor, the same woman who came here, who was just investigated for corruption, and her same people were just fined thousands of pounds. She's walking down the street casually while she comes to see the people that she's about to take over peacefully. Now, when you look at what happened over in the US, as soon as the arrest was made, the first person that they went to report to was the UK in the House of Commons, the House of Lords, who then called the governor, and the governor then came and gave his speech. All of these things are tied. And I always tell persons, don't look at what the man in front of you is saying. Hear clearly what he's not telling you and put those pieces together. And we have seen for a very long time how these people actually infiltrate people strategically, even with broadcasting of different news. They have sent this negative stuff all throughout the Caribbean. I actually received a footage from BBC News from my nephew over in St. Lucia. And they are thinking that there's a narrative. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just ask you guys this question now. So you've been protesting in your country, and sort of the majority are saying that direct rule is not the solution. What then, as we inch a little bit closer to the end of the program, well, what is the solution? How do you fix this?
Okay, so
have you looked at the 900+ page report and said that it has any merits to it, or do you believe that report is completely without any foundation? And what's the way forward?
Okay, so before I get off, because I have a client who's going to walk in the next probably 5 or 10 minutes, because I'm at work. First of all, the same in terms of moving forward and putting things in order. And let me make one point before I do so. You had Milling sit down with a group of people that were hand selected and business people who were hand selected, and a discussion wasn't done. They came to give their recommendations as to why things have to be implemented and what the implications will be if it is not done. So they never met with the people, first of all. Moving forward, we already know, according to the COI, they've highlighted certain things. Again, things that they themselves are actually guilty of, and they don't even have rules to govern themselves. Now, we also have that privilege of helping ourselves. The UK are not the only people who can give a hand in helping to go over things when it comes to laws and governing. If you have pointed out the weaknesses and showed persons, okay, you haven't done this or you haven't done that. We also have other friends and we also have other ties with the Caribbean, like OECS and CARICOM, who is willing to send over an independent body outside of the UK to then help to put certain legislations into place. But they don't want that. It is so we now have to also, when persons talk about holding those in office accountable, first of all, the same persons that they said have done all this corruption and all these kinds of stuff and have said that they're in bridge. If you notice, these people have come down and they are the same people who they want to now use to put certain things in place. If you're so corrupt, why do you still need me to sit down at a table to help you put certain legislations and have me sign a whole bunch of documents from you? If I'm so corrupt, you want nothing to do with me.
Let me add, and I want the people in the Cayman Islands to understand that the BVI people are good people. We are determined to do what's right in the best interest of the country. So we have a number of people, a large percentage of our population who does not condone wrongdoing. They are also asking for change. We have been asking for change ourselves, myself included. So we will welcome positive change where all people are involved in those change. All people are involved in the implementation of those changes. That's all we are saying. We welcome the UK or anybody, any governing authority to come in and help us get on the right track. Whatever the recommendations are in the report, the recommendations are not life-threatening. They are concerns or warrant further investigations. Let's be clear. I want people to understand they're not life-threatening. They're concerns and they're reasons for further investigation. So when you do the further investigation, there are checks and balance within our governance structure to address those issues. The governor plays a major role in the governance of our territory based on the relationship that we have. We believe as a people, and I'm speaking for people who agree with my philosophy now, because some people get a little technical. I believe people want good governance, they want clear, transparent governance, and they're willing to do whatever it takes as long as all of us are included in the decision making. And that's what we're talking about. We say no to no UK rule. No, it's not necessary. We are at a stage right now, we cannot afford to go back. In the UK, along with the Queen herself, to be appalled, they should be embarrassed to see that they are now proposing holding a gun over a people's head when you are defending Ukraine's position to not have Russia invade their country. So it's all tied in. You can't be the judge, jury, all at the same time and then turn around to be the invader. It does not make any sense. So that's something they need to be aware of.
Yeah, Ms. Richardson, I know that you have to go, so let's just get some final comments from you.
Well, I agree with Sam completely. You cannot allow persons, you cannot, again, come to force my hand. If you're giving a recommendation, you are suggesting, you are giving ideas. Anyone who comes into your house, your personal house, will say, look, I noticed that you have a crack here in your wall. I noticed that someone probably didn't do this piece of architecture properly for you. I recommend that you get someone, or you do this or you do that. You don't kick me out of my house. and then say, I'm going to fix your house for you according to my liking. When you're fixing it and you're not consulting me, are you doing it for me or for yourself?
And of course, the UK will make the point that it isn't your house, that you guys are still in overseas territory. And maybe the extension of this conversation
our relationship
is our overseas territories now having to decide what the future of their constitution and governance will look like. Maybe that's the next conversation. Do you guys want to be an independent country so that you can say to the UK, you don't have the right to tell us to do anything? Because right now, as it stands constitutionally, of course, they have the right. Whether or not they will exercise that or not, I guess time will tell. Ms. Richardson, thank you so much for joining the program. We certainly appreciate those comments.
Thank you so much.
We need to clear up.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Amberly. You go ahead.
Sorry, if I can add to the question that was posed earlier, what do we propose? Right now, because of the two issues that have been intertwined, I think it's important we have to prioritize. And our priority right now is not losing our democracy. So we have been focused on what can we do at this juncture to ensure that we do not lose our democracy and we have a no UK rule and our constitution is not suspended. That is what we've been focusing on. Our government or legislators have been in discussions for the past 3 days, and they have been coming up with solutions. We've started to see some of those as recent as yesterday. They are making changes. There are actions, but give our people time to fix and work along with. For the time that this relationship exists, work along with us to fix these issues. Not suspend my constitution and say, I am the sole person who knows what's right, who knows what's in your best interest. Because the reality is, you didn't think that I had a best interest. You have refused to educate our people on a number of occasions. Our tertiary institution that we have here, we fought for that and we built that ourselves with assistance from foreigners and friends. You don't contribute to our development. But now that we have developed, you're trying to say, you know what's in my best interest. You don't. And
may I ask
time as they are working right now to come up with changes and solutions to see us through this period.
And may I ask a question in terms of what is happening right now? Who's your acting premier?
Natalia Wheatley.
Honorable Natalia Wheatley.
And she was a minister in the government.
He was a deputy. He was a deputy premier.
Right.
He's the acting premier. I just want to add one final comment if you're getting ready to close off, is that we need to be clear. We are not properties, none of the UK own us. The UK is established as the administrating powers for the time being, until we as a people decide what direction we want to go in. So we need to be clear. We need to stop using this type of language. They do not own us. It is not their country. They don't have any country rights. They are the administrating power based on history and the setup of these territories. So let's be clear on that. I don't want people to continue to talk about the UK owners. No, we're not property. The days of property owning, where you own human beings, it has finished.
Yes.
All right. So we do have a few other comments that are coming in via WhatsApp. So we have a question here from a listener who says, good morning, Sandy. Can you please ask your guest the following? What are the benefits of continuing being in overseas territory? And number two, is it not time for these OTs to walk away from the mother country?
I'm 200% believe that it is time for us to move on. We have already matured. Even as an independent country, you will find yourself in some of these same situations where you will continue to need to be improving. So yes, we need to move on. It's time for us to now say goodbye to any type of overarching colonial concept of somebody else dictating and manipulating the people's minds. We are capable, as small as the BVI is, as small as we are, ladies and gentlemen, we are very resourceful people. We have done things that people never thought that we could do. We came out of major hurricanes. We've We've been faced with the same global challenges with finance. And look at where we are today. We are not the best, but we are doing really, really good. And it's the hard work of the local people, not the UK, not anybody else. We've had friends and other persons, yes, assisted us. And we are grateful for that. We will continue to develop relationship with others, but on our terms, not on the UK term, not on anyone else's term. It's time for us to move on as a people.
All right, we've got a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I want to make a point of, but there was a comment made that it's our constitution. That isn't correct. The BVI's what is called a constitution in a colony like BVI and like the Cayman Islands
We're not a
is
colony.
not local.
Sorry, go ahead.
You are a colony.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll comment after. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Caller? Did we lose them?
I think we did.
Are you able to hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay. What the documents that exist in Cayman and the BVI are constitutional orders, meaning an order made by the UK cabinet, laid on the table in the House of Commons to be called BVI Constitution or a Cayman Islands Constitution, but that is misleading. If you think that it's your constitution, then I want to see you amend it. I want to see you go and amend it yourself. I'm telling you, you can't do it. And the reason you can't do it is because you didn't create it. And the only authority that can amend a document like that is the one that created it. It's not your document. And so the reason this is important to recognize is that you're boxing yourself into a belief that isn't based in legal reality. And in order to move forward on a proper footing, you have to understand where you are legally. You are a colony called an overseas territory, just like the Cayman Islands is. No it's, no ands, no buts, or any supposes about it.
Right.
And what's important to understand is what was previously said, is that the UK, when it became unfashionable to have colonies, the colonies were put essentially in a trust in the UN. And so the idea is that the colonies would be developed in a way that would be in accordance with the aspirations of the peoples in the respective territories. But the UK is saying, well, since we're running it, we're going to have some say in what happens. But that's not the same as saying that they have possession of us. They gave up that aspect when they put the territories in the UN structure for the purposes of the people deciding, giving the people the right to self-determination to determine where they would take themselves in the future. But make no mistake about it, the structure is imperial, it's colonial, and the reason you're having the heavy-handedness you're having is evidence of that. And earlier it was talked about, well, is this a relationship that's beneficial to both parties? No, it's not. We had the same problem. All of this stuff is so just. I mean, this is you could just be talking about Cayman right now.
That's right.
We have the same problems, and I have a friend who says, when you talk about having a mutually beneficial relationship with the UK, that is asking a lot, because the only kind of relationship that the UK likes to have is one that is like that between a horse and a rider. And I can assure you that in this relationship, we are not the rider. Okay. And the UK is
sounds
going
more
to
like
try
it might
to
be
tell us what to do.
It might be a rider and a donkey, not even a horse. But Denny, leave us there with those comments. We do have a caller from BVI who was trying to get on the call. We'll encourage them to call back. Again, the telephone number is 345-936-2626. Folks, in about 2.5 minutes, we do have to end the program on radio, but what we will do is we'll continue the stream a little bit longer, because there's a lot of you who are obviously very, very engaged in this conversation. But our radio link is very, very precise. So the radio show will end at 9:30, and then we'll continue the conversation on our social media channels. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for calling.
Hi, this is Shayna.
Hi, Shayna. I know I was butchering your name earlier.
No, you have it on point. A great conversation today. I'm really happy to see the engagement that we're having. And of course, I'm calling in to support my countrymen and women in the conversation. And, you know, it's a perfect storm, Sandy. There's so many things going on here on the ground that I know we have the attention of the world literally on us. And there are a couple of things, though, that we need to, as Sam was, you know, expressing earlier, that we need persons to understand. So I just want to touch on a few things. One, about, you know, the question of independence keeps coming up, and it's something that we've been talking about on Territory Talk for quite a few months now, that it's important for people to become more educated about what our rights are as a people for self-governance, and what that would look like. You know, Cayman might do something different to Montserrat, something different to Bermuda. But it is something that I think that situations like ours, situations like what has happened in TCI, and which, by the way, they went on a direct rule and they were no better off for it. So, you know, there it is, over a decade later, they're still trying to prosecute supposedly the wrongdoers. And that, for me, is something where it's a clear indication that we had to resist the suspension of our constitutional order. We couldn't allow it to just happen, because, again, there's a precedent that this is not necessarily the best solution or the optimal for anybody, you know? And we feel as a people, you know, all of us aren't criminals, all of us aren't bad. We have been on the ground, voices like myself, Sam, and Amberly, talking about the things that need to change.
Shayna, can I just pause you for one quick second? We do have to just end our radio program, but just hang on there, because we'll continue on social media. So folks, if you're listening to Bobo 89.1 FM, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll continue the conversation on our YouTube and Facebook channels. And radio audience, please have a pleasant day. Feel free to watch us streaming live now as we continue the conversation. 1 second, Shayna.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.
All right, folks, thank you so much for your indulgence. So just a reminder that the show is 7:30 to 9:30. On radio, we have to be very, very precise with the timing, because they have other things in the queue that are scheduled. But of course, here in social media, we have some flexibility. So we will continue the conversation. Shayna, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, I was saying, we have been community advocates. We heard, you know, in the introductions of us, you know, that we have been lobbying for change. We have been lobbying for good governance. When there have been issues, we've called it out. But, you know, the key thing that we want to make sure everybody understands, especially for us as the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, has a responsibility to play in the governance of the territories of the UK. And I think somebody mentioned it earlier. They come and they do checks every year. So when the question was raised in the report by the commissioner as to why has these governance issues been allowed to languish so long, that's not a question so much for us alone, you know, because again, if we're going to be using words like partnership, then the other partner in this relationship also needs to answer the question in terms of, are they saying that they had no clue as to what was happening, you know, whether it's public service issues, whether it's the crime problem, human trafficking, drugs, whatever the case is. You know, it can't be just a one-sided conversation. And I think that is the thing that really upset a lot of people, in that first it's like, okay, we did the report, we did the COI, there's a report, but we're not going to allow you to see it until after we've had a conversation with the legislators about it. And with that, you know, again, that was a false uprising, because we're like, well, how are you going to have a conversation with legislators representing the people without the people knowing what the recommendations are, and to say, well, this is what we agree with, you know, whether this is an accurate depiction of it or not. You know, I wasn't surprised in terms of the slant on the report. You know, the commissioner came in, if all he sees is a negative aspect of my society for the last 18 months, I probably would have written the same thing, because that's all he knows. It's not that he went out with Amberly and I and had a conversation and understood. You know, we have been talking, you know, for years now about the concerns that we have, and it's a matter too of our culture. And we have all this in all the islands, especially Caribbean politics. You know, we understand some of the dynamics that are at play here, and it's nothing unique to us. The thing for me, though, is that we need to be solution-oriented. We have to be solution-oriented. So you have 45 recommendations. You know, you have 4 overarching. And was anything else considered besides just suspending the Constitution as a way to go about it? Fine, you want to say you're removing the persons that may be part of the problem. But then that doesn't mean there aren't other persons that can help solve the problem. And that's where, you know, we said, no, we can't have this conversation from this perspective. This has to be changed, and we have to be included. So I'm really proud of our legislators in the short space of time that was allowed, that they were able to put something on the table to the Minister of Overseas Territories and say, hey, we're not going to just lay down and say, well, you know, we were bad children, and yes, we need to be disciplined. And therefore, whatever you want to come in to do, you can come in to do. Nah. I really have to give kudos to those guys in approach. Hold on a second, I'm going to wrap right here. And say that let's go through this process of the negotiations. And again, it's country above self. Because once we can get to that place on the ground, that whatever we need to do to make sure that we save our country, 70 plus years ago, our forefathers marched down Main Street to the governor's office with a petition to say to the UK government, we wanted back local representation because we're being governed out of the Leeward Islands Federation. Okay? And as a result of that, our social and economic development was basically non-existent. And this is post-emancipation. So if we fought hard for that, that wasn't anything that was given to us. We were the ones as the people that got up and said, we want back our local legislators. So it's not something that we are willing to give up so easily, because our history has taught us differently. That was the catalyst for us to develop ourselves economically, socially, and politically into the world powerhouse that we are now. And we can't put that history and heritage to shame. So I will pause there, Sam.
Thank you so much, my dear. And Melissa, on the comment says, yes, Sam, I agree with you. They don't own us, and our forefathers bought the land. Charlene said, Denny, it was on target. Al, joining us from Georgetown, says, when the Caribbean wake up and realize their greatness, it will be a great celebration. The so-called motherland is not Europe. Joseph joins the conversation. He says, let's look at this for what it is. You have the leader of a country who despicably would use his position to facilitate the trafficking of illegal drugs for financial gain. And it would appear that he is once more trying to use his position to get out of jail and avoid the consequences of his actions. Well, I have no sympathy for him, and I hope the US holds him until he is tried. Secondly, there are some people who seem to wish to separate from the UK so they can do as they please without answering. And unfortunately, the comment got cut off. Jared is up next. I see Katura here, but I'm not sure if she's just listening or if she actually wants to participate in the conversation. So remember, folks, there is a link that you can join the show, but that's if you want to actually join in and come on the screen. Jared, some more comments from you, please.
Yeah, you can hear me now, Sandy?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So what I was alluding to, where some people may not have understood what I was trying to say, is that when we look at the demise, well, certain demises of countries like Haiti, Grenada, and Jamaica, we noticed that there usually was some involvement by a superpower. There's no denying that fact. That did happen. What I'm seeing here in Haiti's case, it looks a bit suspicious that the timeline with everything coinciding seems to line up. Now, the governor there in the BVI has said it's not related. Truth be told, Caribbean people weren't born yesterday, and it sounds very funny in a sense where it's like, but we know you are watching it. The governor is watching it. We know that the governor was privy to certain talks, even if we were not privy to it. And just because the media is saying this is what is going on, does not mean that that happened in its entirety. And that doesn't mean that, what I'm saying is that there are things going on behind the curtain, and it's looking behind the curtain. Just because you don't see what behind the curtain don't mean it don't happen. Because we can clearly see that independent countries like Jamaica, Haiti, and Grenada have had certain repercussions that did happen. Now, what I will bring to your attention, Sandy, is that the most honorable Mia Motley at the financial symposium where all the heads of government came, she said this: the British overseas territory countries are being penalized as if they're large countries. Why do I bring this? Because they were talking about financial issues, money laundering, things like that. So she pointed that when the US and UK and Luxembourg and Switzerland, are they adhering to their rules? No, they're not. Why do I bring that up? BVI and the Cayman Islands operate as large financial centers, but every year we have to adhere to stringent and stricter financial rules, which I don't know if the other countries, UK, US, adhere to, or even Canada, right? Now, when we come at a microscopic level, we look at it at a micro level, the fact of the matter is there are criminal elements out there, right? Why has the governor not really put much direction into it? I don't know, but that is his responsibility. Based on the report that was put forth, they said that they don't think the Constitution is fit for purpose. The problem is, when you suspend the Constitution, you suspend the rights of the citizens within that country. That is a fact. Now, when it comes to the public service expenditure, right? Let's say we cut half of the people in the BVI, right? The services aren't going to be running as they would have. So then you would see a fluctuation in the normal capacity that BVI would operate at. And the UK government would say, well, see there, they can't manage what they're doing. So what I'm saying is that if the BVI does good, the United Kingdom has criticism. If the BVI does bad, the United Kingdom has criticism. And when it comes to building a relationship and managing that relationship, what the BVI is saying is that the management and the communication back and forth, the dialogue that's supposed to happen, does not happen. That is the big issue. And so what BVI is seeking to do is to, let's come to the table. You have concerns, so do we, right? But when you have a governor who comes to the Caribbean, who does not know the cultural element, the slavery, Sandy, who feels it, knows it. We born you and we grow you. So don't tell me some Tom, Dick, Harry from mainland going know how the Caribbean run. We know how we know how this run.
Let's leave it there, Jared. We do have a statement coming out of CARICOM. The Caribbean community has also expressed what they say are deep concerns over a recommendation by the Commission of Inquiry, again, to suspend the Constitution of the British Virgin Islands. And basically, the suspension of that would allow the United Kingdom to exercise direct rule to fix governance issues. In a statement issued yesterday, CARICOM says that it supports the BVI government and its people in their this recommendation. And the 15-member trade bloc notes that the Virgin Islanders and their elected representatives can implement changes needed to ensure better transparency and accountability without the UK imposing direct rule. CARICOM said that direct rule will be a retrograde step towards the colonial period, and that the imposition of direct rule and the history of such imposition in the Caribbean was never intended to deliver democratic governance or to be an instrument of economic and social development of our countries and people. So this is a direct quotation from their statement. They go on to say that CARICOM believes that any action to suspend the House of Parliament in the BVI and impose direct rule from London would be inconsistent with the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So this goes back to the point that Denny was making. Accordingly, CARICOM reminds the United Kingdom of its international obligations in respect of the UN's Resolution 1514 of 1960, where the United Nations Declaration of the granting of independence to colonial countries and people. So, folks, there has been, it's changed names. It was, Denny, you might have to remind me of this, but I think at the time that we were involved in it, we actually, myself, Denny, Billy Adams, the Chamber, we, well, I think I went on behalf of our small group, but back in, oh gosh, I can't remember what year that was now, but, you know, we went to New York before the United Nations Decolonization Committee of, I want to say it was 23. Forgive me if I don't quite remember the exact name, but most countries around the world, most colonies, if you will, have been decolonized. There are very few overseas territories left, which is the newest word for you know, a colony, because they felt that the term colony was antiquated, and it certainly has a very negative history associated with it. But of course, no one can forget history, because if we forget that, we will never know exactly where it is that we're going. So the remit for decolonization has been part of the UK's, the United Nations, my apologies, agenda since at least the 1960s. They're encouraging all parent companies to push countries towards independence. And yet there are countries such as the Cayman Islands where largely, thank you, Denny, he says decolonization of 24. There are a lot of countries still who want to have this relationship with the UK where they don't want to go independent. But, you know, the truth of the matter is the UK is slowly pushing us out the door in any event. So I just wanted to share a quick video to put it in context in terms of what the rest of the world is seeing, because we have a, you know, we're having a conversation here amongst us as Caribbean people. Like Jared just said, you know, we're Caribbean people. We have a sense of what's going on here within our individual countries. And yet the narrative that is out there in the public for the rest of the world to see may not necessarily be the truth of the matter, or may not necessarily be what the people of the individual overseas territories want the general public to hear. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation this morning, folks, because I do think it's important to give the people of BVI a voice, to educate ourselves as Caymanians, because, you know, we have some parallels in our story, but yet there's still some unique elements to it as well. So have a look at this video that I found making the rounds.
There's trouble in paradise. For years, the British Virgin Islands has been where the ultra-rich set up shell companies which are shrouded by secrecy and weak governance. So weak, the BVI governor set up a special commission last year investigating cronyism, widespread misuse of public funds, and possible links to drugs. Then yesterday, the Premier Andrew Foy arrested by the Americans in Miami in connection with a cocaine plot.
And this afternoon, a bombshell announcement with the publication of a long-awaited report into alleged corruption in the British Virgin Islands that will ricochet through the Foreign Office here. The Commission found that governance on the islands was so bad, they're recommending temporary suspension of elected government itself and replacement with an advisory council. In other words, direct rule from here, London. If approved by the Privy Council, which could happen within weeks, day-to-day control would pass to the BVI governor, career diplomat John Rankin, who'd appoint an executive council. Rankin said the commission had concluded
with a particularly heavy heart that unless the most urgent and drastic steps are taken, the current situation with elected officials deliberately ignoring the tenets of good governance, will go on indefinitely.
The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, said substantial legislative and constitutional change is required to restore the standards of governance that the people of the British Virgin Islands are entitled to.
Your BVI government says transparent commission of inquiry is welcomed.
Premier Foy had embraced the commission when it was set up, and many in the BVI will see suspending his government as the old colonial power throwing its weight around. As for Foy's arrest, the commission and its findings are totally separate, insists the BVI governor. Foy's indictment is like reading a Hollywood script, accused of helping Hezbollah and the Sinaloa cartel try to smuggle cocaine through the BVI ports. But the commission recommendations are to be welcomed, say anti-corruption campaigners.
Well, where are we today? We have a situation where the elected premier of the island has been arrested on suspected drugs trafficking offences. You've got a commission of inquiry saying there's endemic corruption. You've got our research, which points to 92% of money laundering and corruption money that flows through the overseas territories being in the British Virgin Islands. It's a pretty damning picture, and it's all come together very quickly, really. It's clear that urgent and decisive action needs to be taken to reverse the direction of travel.
Trouble in paradise, indeed.
Can I address that?
Sure. And we do have oh, I'm sorry, Sheena, are you still on hold? Oh, I think
I was. I actually was just
sorry.
about to drop off.
Yeah.
My apologies. I did not.
I'll keep viewing.
Yes, I did not realize you were still there.
I want the
and comments online.
Okay, thank you so much, my dear.
I want the same people who just view that video to fully understand the machinery behind the propaganda on island right now in the BVI, and before the release of the report, before the arrest of Premier Foy, there were a team of individuals, and they're still here, renting homes, staying in hotels. They have technology, computers and cell phones and listening devices, and they are creative in media, you name it. When it comes to assassinating one's character, let me tell you a little bit about the BVI. We are one of the most stable, economical countries in the Caribbean. We have one of the best financial services center in the Caribbean. We have one of the most attractive tourism product in the Caribbean. We have some of the best and most loyal, honest people in the Caribbean, in the BVI. I'm not speaking against anyone else. I'm simply telling you that's our narrative. We have others now who are trying to create a narrative for us so they can sell their story and try to paint the BVI as a bad place. I'll say this last. Let's look at the information that was handed out. Our report that was concluded by the end of 2021. It was sat on and asked for extension in January of 2022. It coincided the release in April or May or whenever it was released, April, to connect to a arrest. So people like who you just saw on that video can say, you see what I told you? There's rampant corruption. It comes straight from the top. The question is, when was the report actually finished? Who was previewed to the report? The undersecretary, the minister, and those who are now trying to push direct rule on us. Were you aware of the sting operation going on in our territory, and what is it orchestrated to demonstrate, to prove your point that we have corruption in the territory, even though it's not connected, but guess what? It's still connected. A lot of questions need to be asked, but nonetheless, the BVI is a beautiful place, wonderful place. We have one of the best. It's one of the reasons why we have so many investors coming to the BVI, because we have an honest, fair, transparent government. We have a system that needs improving, and like every other system, even in the independent ones, we're gonna get there.
All right. Well, thank you. Amberly, some final comments. And folks, don't forget that after this, we do have a little competition you guys can participate in. We're actually giving away a pink Mercedes, so don't miss out on it. Amberly?
Yes. I thank you, Sandy, for this platform. As my colleague Julio said, to pretty much let the people know who we are here in the Virgin Islands. What you saw in that video, that is unfortunately a narrative that has been running for a very long time. And our financial services sector, it's a solid economy, and they're not accused of any wrongdoing. They've tried to attack them many times from that angle of having people hide their money. They abide by all international regulations. Whatever they're supposed to do, it is done within the sector. And that's why we remain stable, and that's why it continues to thrive. Unfortunately, there's a constant attack against our financial services industry. Unfortunately, there's a constant attack against our territory. And it is unfortunate that we have found ourselves in this place right now, but allow the systems and structures that are in place to work, one, and those that need assistance, we are working together at this present moment. There are conversations happening. There are negotiations happening. The BVI is not a tainted place. It's not a bad place. And we do have honest citizens here. We do have honest leaders here. And we will get out of this, and we will get out of this together. And we thank you, our fellow Caribbean brothers and sisters, for standing with us, for giving us a platform. We very much appreciate it. And it is just, unfortunately, one of these attacks or things that we have come to used to as OTs of Britain, of the UK. It's unfortunate, but what you are seeing is indeed not the picture, or we will not stand for a suspension of our constitution, nor will we stand for direct rule. It's not an option on the table for us as a people, and we will do what we need to do to ensure that we continue to move towards an independent state and people, and not a colonialist rule.
Thank you so much. So that's Mr. Julio, Henry, and Amberly joining us this morning. Amberly Crabb was the last name, right?
Yes.
Thank you both so much from the British Virgin Islands, folks. It's been a super engaging conversation. Now, don't log out yet, because we actually have a special guest that is going to be joining us tomorrow morning. And what we're going to do now is we're going to have you guess who the guest is, right? And up for grabs, check it out, folks. It's a pink Mercedes just for you guys.
It's time to play Guess the Guest. This Thursday's edition of The Cold Hard Truth will feature a visit from a very special guest. But who? Give it your best guess, and you, yes, you could win your very own hot pink Mercedes. Okay, so it's kid size, but it's still a Mercedes. Post your best guess right now on the live stream, or radio listeners call in on 935-2626 for your chance to win right now.
All right, folks. So having a little bit of fun with you guys, as we often do here on the program. Julio, were you trying to say something? Sorry.
I think your guest is Joe Biden.
No, it's not, but good guess. But that's not it. We would have had to have shipped that Mercedes off to you. So, folks, it's a kid-size Mercedes. So if you've got grandchildren and little kids or whatever, this is perfect for them. Little toddlers can get in there and drive around. And it's got the little remote control for the parents to be able to control it. So let's see the guesses. John, you want to hang around and see who guesses correctly? So we have Barbie and Ken, says Damien. Nope. Chris Saunders, no. Anne says, as one of the most compliant financial services industries, the video is a common narrative to compromise our success and alter the truth with a narrative contrary to the truth. The unfortunate alleged actions of the BVI Premier is a hapless finding at a critical time. Thank you so much for that. And by the way, we also see Alric Lindsay. Good morning, Alric, an attorney here in the Cayman Islands and former political candidate, also weighing in. And Alric says, fact number one, many of the companies that are used for money laundering and other acts actually are formed in Delaware, Nevada, and California, and yet they're not mentioned in the media. London was cited as a location for money and property held on behalf of the Russian oligarchs, and yet London was not shut down, and no substantial negative media campaign was done in respect of London. So again, showing the disparity that exists. Good morning, Mr. George. Are you going to try a guess at the guess?
Yes, Miss Sandy, it was wonderful. That program could go on this morning for another 2 hours.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much.
Wonderful. But maybe one of your guests is coming on tomorrow, be a representative from the Chamber of Commerce to talk about this Mercedes.
No, it's not. It's not a chamber member, so nope. But that's a good guess. Very good guess. I like it.
Okay.
Jared, thank you so much, honey. Mr. George, Jared says Juliana O'Connor Conley. Nope. Gigi's guessing Sabrina or Kenneth. Gigi says Chris. Trisha says Andre Ebanks. Marshall was also going with Chris, the deputy premier. Ding, 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 ding. Ignacia, you are the winner. It is none other than Governor Roper. Imagine, our own governor will be on the program tomorrow. So congratulations to Ignacia. Charlene came in at a close second there with, looks like they were just neck and neck, probably seconds apart. Paul was hoping that it would be Mr. Famous again, MP Famous. Moya says Billy Adams. So no, Ignacia got it right. Yes, it is the governor. So thank you so much, Mr. Julio and everybody else. So listen, folks, in addition to that, you're also going to get a gift certificate for Waffle Monkeys. Big shout out to Waffle Monkeys for $20. And I can tell you one thing, a $20 gift certificate at Waffle Monkeys will get you an entire meal. This will go far. Waffle Monkeys has some amazing sausage rolls, homemade donuts every single day. They make these from scratch, as well as a variety of waffle-inspired items. So yes, Ignacia, you got yourself a hot pink Mercedes. It's a hand-me-down, so slightly used. You can't afford even the toy Mercedes these days. But listen, if you've got a kid in your life, whether it's a child of your own or a grandchild that's the right age, trust me when I tell you they're going to love driving around in this Mercedes. Gigi says she wants a ride tomorrow in the Mercedes. So we are pleased to announce that for the first time ever, on the Cold Hard Truth, we will be having Governor Martin Roper join us on tomorrow's program. So do tune in for that, folks. It's sure to be another exciting show. Have your questions ready. Have your comments ready as well for the program. And that's it. So fantabulous show today. Good people of the Cayman Islands, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We had a little bit of fun towards the end there. And we will see you guys tomorrow morning at 7:30. So Lizette says, I need a ride to the administration building. It's a one-seater, so there's no room for carpooling. But that's good. That's good. All right, folks, you guys be good, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.